If your friend told you, my kid didn't respond to my birthday text, would you say, wow, you must be an unlovable parent. You must have really pissed him off. Of course you wouldn't. Of course you wouldn't say that. You would probably say something like, that's got to be so painful. Please know that it doesn't mean anything about you as a parent. They're getting fed a lot of disinformation right now. Remember that. You are listening to the Beyond the High Road podcast with Shelby Milford, episode number 187.
Welcome to Beyond the High Road, a podcast dedicated to healing your heart and life following the grief of alienation. I'm your host, Shelby Milford, a twice-certified life coach specializing in post-traumatic growth. If you're experiencing the effects of alienation and you're ready to heal, then this show is my love letter to you. Stay tuned.
Hey guys, how are we doing today? So today I want to talk with you guys about what happens, the something that happens before you ever send the text to your child, before you wrap the gift, before you send the invitation, before you send the message on social media, the text, leave a voicemail, whatever it is. Because I know so many of you are sitting with questions. I know this for a fact because I hear it all the time. Sitting with questions like, should I keep reaching out? Should I stop sending gifts? It feels so one-sided. Is it healthy to keep inviting them when they never show up anyway? And when you're in it, these questions feel like life or death sort of decisions. It can feel like if I make the wrong move here, I'm going to lose them forever. But here's the thing. Before we talk about when and how to reach out, which is going to be next couple weeks probably, we need to talk about what you're making your child's response or non-response mean about you. Because that meaning is quietly driving your nervous system, your decisions, and your experience of every single interaction with your child. So today is part one. This is the pre-work for all the practical, concrete stuff about timing, channels, and what to say that I'll walk you through in the next episode. Okay? Today is about your inner world. The story that your brain tells you about you when your child doesn't reply. So let's actually start here. When your child doesn't respond to a text, they ignore an invitation, or they don't say thank you for a gift, right? What happens inside of your body? For many alienated parents, the ones that I speak to, it's instant. The stomach drops, your chest tightens, your brain goes into overdrive, right? Hunting for explanations to why. And then the stories start. I'm a terrible parent. I must be a terrible parent. I must have done something wrong. They hate me. I must be dead to them. If they cared at all, they would respond. They would initiate. They would tell me they love me at the end of conversations. Sound familiar? I was talking with a client recently. We'll just call her Lisa. And she told me, if my son leaves me on red, like red receipts, I can't function for the rest of the day. I just stare at my phone and I refresh, wondering what I did wrong this time, right? And this particular parent, Lisa, we're calling her, she sat on her couch all day. She was supposed to be working, and instead she went home for lunch, took a break, was going to go back to work, but she ended up getting herself so worked up that she sat on her couch, and then eventually it went into going into the little baby pictures and what have you. What's powerful about the initial example I gave you about Lisa, though, is not that she's just hurt. Of course she is, right? What's powerful is that her brain is taking his behavior, her son's behavior, and turning it into a verdict on her own worth and on her own identity as a mom. And when that is the frame, then every interaction that you have or try to have becomes a test. Every invitation, every message, every holiday is an exam that you either pass or fail, which is absolutely exhausting, as I'm sure that many of you know. It also keeps you stuck in the same power-inverted dynamic that alienation created in the first place, right? Where the child is in the parent role and you are in the child role, or actually kind of the neglected child role, waiting to see if you did good enough for you ever to be noticed or loved. So if that's you, nothing is wrong with you. As I always say, your nervous system is doing exactly what it was trained to do in a hostile, unpredictable environment, which is what you've likely been living through. But we're going to gently question whether those meanings are actually true. So I want to walk you through 3 common stories. 3? Did I write? Yeah. 3 common stories that I see alienated parents tell themselves when there's no response. And as I do this, I want you to notice which one feels the most familiar to you and familiar inside of you, right? Like drop into your body. So the first one, story 1, is no response means I'm a bad or unlovable parent. So this one sounds like if I were a good mom or dad, they'd want to talk to me. Another example of that could be if I hadn't messed up so badly, they'd at least respond. They'd respond to my text. They'd say thank you, right? But it must be something that I have done, because why else could this keep happening? You keep yourself in the why. It must be this, because if not, where else is the explanation? So one client, I'm going to call him Mark. He told me recently that he sent his daughter a short message on her birthday. She didn't respond at all. And he spent the whole night replaying this is what he said to me via text. I spent the whole night replaying every mistake I've ever made as a father. I've ruined everything, is what he wrote. I asked him if I could relay this information with you, share it. And it was yes. So anyway, I've ruined everything, is what he said. So notice that in this example, Mark's brain took one piece of data, which was that no reply. It was actually a no data situation, right? And turned it into evidence for an entire character judgment. He's like, I'm ruined. I'm ruined as a dad. I've made terrible mistakes, unforgivable mistakes. And he couldn't even locate what those mistakes actually were, right? It must be some combination of these. It's one thing now, and we can talk, and other guys just know that personal responsibility and taking responsibility for anything that we've done in the past is an absolute necessary step in your healing. So necessary. But right now we're talking about taking outside information and making it mean something about us inside. Okay. So they're 2 separate episodes completely. So I'm just want you to just decide. So if you do this, right, if you are the no response means I'm a bad, unlovable parent, right, it doesn't mean that you're dramatic or that you're irrational or that you hate yourself forever. It just usually means that you're carrying shame and that your nervous system is scanning for proof that your worst fears about yourself are true, which seems backwards. Like, why would my body do that to me? But I can explain that later, okay? So story number 2 is, if they don't reply, I should stop trying altogether. This is why I made this episode, you guys. It's because this last week alone, I have gotten 4 different clients. One of them was a listener that emailed, and then 3 clients actually that have asked this question in this week alone, and I get it all the time. If they don't reply, then shouldn't I just stop trying? This one sounds logical on the surface, and it often dresses itself up in boundaries. Well, I'm not going to chase them, is what it could sound like. Or if they want a relationship, they can reach out. I'm done. That's the parent that's passed into the anger stage, like revisited the anger stage and the long-term anger stage. And the last example I have of that, there's probably lots of ways, is what's the point? They clearly don't want to hear from me. Okay. And sometimes that is a healthy, boundaried sort of choice, right? But oftentimes, most times, there's something else underneath that, which is the terror of feeling the same rejection again. So instead of saying, this hurts right now, and I would really love some support, your brain might say, I don't want to continue beating my head up against a wall. I'll just shut the door and call it a boundary. If that's you, notice if there's a part of you that would actually like to keep a small door open, cracked open even, but it feels safer to slam it shut than to sit in uncertainty. Oh gosh, I cannot tell you how many times I've coached on this, right? Can I just forget, let's just drop the case. Let's just forget all of this. I'll just walk away and I'll see them when they're 18. And most of you know, and so do the parents I'm speaking with when they proclaim that it doesn't always happen on their 18th birthday or even 18 at all. Not that I'm trying to instill any sort of scarcity or fear in you, but in that moment when you're saying that, if this is you, notice that your body is just craving to find some certainty now. right? It's like this short-term comfort for long-term discomfort, when I want to always encourage you to do the opposite, okay? So now we're going to go to story 3, okay? The story 3 is, if I just say it right, if I just say the right thing in the right way, they'll finally see the truth. This one, if I craft the perfect message, I can fix this story sort of thing, sounds kind of like, maybe if I explain my side more clearly, they'll finally understand. I kind of just said that. If I can just get the words right, I can break through the alienation, break through the other parent's tactics, break through the other parent's punishment, whatever. And the last way that I've got written here, like I said, there could be many ways, is maybe if they just see me one more time in action, in my element, with other kids or other people that respect me, interacting with them, right? Then maybe they'll get it then. Maybe if I could just get them around my family, they'll remember how things were and they'll finally just get it. This is where you find yourself sending long text or long emails, rewriting the same letter 10 times, not because it feels good or feels grounded for you, but because you're trying to control the outcome. It's natural. Just know, makes sense why you would. I get it, you know. It gives you the illusion of power in a situation that feels wildly out of your control. And sometimes is out of your control when we're talking about other people's thoughts and feelings and all the things, right? The problem is it keeps you stuck in a cycle where your nervous system only settles if they respond in the way that you want or the way that you think it should be, right? Which means your sense of safety is living over on the other side of the net, always, which is entirely dysregulating in its own right. So now we're going to go into the next segment. What do we do with this? What I want to offer you is a reframe actually that you've heard me use before in different ways. I want you to hear me here. Your child's behavior is information about their current capacity, their influences, and their nervous system. It is not a final grade on who you are as a parent or as a person. I'm going to say it again in a slightly different way because your brain will want to slide right past this. Their silence or their whatever is telling you where they are right now. It is not telling you the full truth of who you are. You might try on a mantra. If this is you, you might try on a mantra like, this tells me something about their reality right now, not about my worth. That does not mean that their behavior doesn't hurt. It just means that we're going to stop using their responses as a measuring stick for your value. Why is this so important? Because if you're using the replies as your only source of emotional oxygen, then every decision about reaching out will be contaminated by fear and desperation. And trust me, this is something I had it myself, and so many parents that I speak with have this. They get on a loop being obsessed by needing, like that is the goal. It's almost like you're on a hamster wheel. You're just chasing the cheese that's up here, you know? And you can't ever get there because your goal is with love, a low quality one. If instead you can hold their behavior as data, right, as a snapshot of their current capacity, their pressures, their influences, then you can start making choices based on your values rather than their reactions. It's freedom, you guys. So here's what you can do. Basically, it's a mini sort of self-inquiry, practical exercise that you can do in your situations, okay? Next time you're staring at your phone, wondering if you should text, or you're looking at a birthday or a holiday on the calendar and debating whether to send something, I want you to pause and ask yourself 3 questions. You can even jot these down somewhere right now. When they don't respond, what's the first story that my brain tells me about it? Is it, I'm a failure? Is it, they never loved me? Is it, I'm being punished? Is it, I'm invisible? They don't respect me? What? Just notice. Do not argue with it. Not yet. Okay? Just name it. Actually, not ever. Don't ever argue with that stuff because that's it'll take you into another whole cycle. Just name it. Oh, this is a story I'm telling myself. I'm telling myself that they never loved me. I'm telling myself that they or disrespectful or whatever it is, or they don't value me or they don't like spending time with me, whatever. Just state it and be done and move on to question 2. Okay? Question 2 is, where did I learn that story? And again, you want to keep this very simple and not go into a whole spiel afterwards. Very simple. Where did I learn that story? Did you learn it? I'm just going to throw some examples out here, and it could be other things too, but did you learn it from the other parent's words? And that can include whatever words that your kiddo has, I'm about to say parroted to you, which is a common comparison, but I also don't think it's like so respectful to our kids. But that's basically, it's them borrowing scenarios from, the other parent. Maybe it's that. Maybe you learn that story from that. Okay? Maybe your own parents are caregivers growing up, right? I only mattered if I was obedient or perfect, something like that. What was it like for you when you were growing up? They always say that your inner critic is usually in the voice of your biggest bully. And so if you had a parent, one of your parents, I had one of my parents was my mom. I mean, God love her. I know she loves me and it's whatever. It's just, it is what it is. But she was a bit of a dictator, growing up. And so she was my voice for a long time. And then it switched over because she was no longer my biggest bully, but who was the alienating parent and also his, of course, at that time, new wife. She was in my head. Oh my God, that was hell. And then I was borrowing their stories, their scenarios, because that was what was being fed to me. But I never really realized I was doing it. Anyway, it was hell. I felt like that they were like following me around. It was awful. Besides the fact that they were actually following me outside my house, but they were in my house too, in my brain. Anyway, or did you learn it from a court decision that made you feel dismissed or erased or unheard, right? Often the story about your child's silence is actually an old story from somewhere else, right? That your brain is now pasting onto this situation. And an old story from somewhere else could be not your story, but the story of alienation that has been handed to you. It's not your generated stories. You don't have authority here, right? So question 3 is, if my best friend, and I don't always, I'm going to leave it alone. I'll just say it. If my best friend were in my exact situation, in this exact situation, and I knew them super well, knew their parenting, knew all the things, right? Would I draw the same conclusion about them in this situation? So if your friend told you, my kid didn't respond to my birthday text, would you say, wow, you must be an unlovable parent, or you must have really pissed him off? Of course you wouldn't. Of course you wouldn't say that. You would probably say something like, that's got to be so painful. Please know that it doesn't mean anything about you as a parent. Or they're getting fed a lot of disinformation right now. Remember that. You would say that kind, with some compassion, some understanding. Or even something as simple as, you're doing the best that you possibly can in an ugly situation, right? That's how you would speak to your best friend, likely. I hope. But what I'm asking here, the whole point of this is, are you more willing to understand and extend compassion to others, other loved ones, than you are to yourself? And if so, that gap is where a lot of your work really lives. Just doing this 3-question little check starts to create a bit of space between the event, the no response, right, and the story. I'm unlovable. It's hopeless. I should stop trying. That tiny bit of space is where your power lives. So now we're in segment 5. And so once you have separated out the story, we can move to something more grounded, which is your values. So instead of asking, what does their silence say about me? I want you to start asking, who do I want to be in this relationship? What kind of parent do I want to be here? Regardless of what their behavior is, their current behavior is. And when you pose this to yourself, I really want you to come from a genuine place, not from some perfect, idealized place, right? You want to think about this in a realistic, sustainable sort of way. You might choose a couple of value words that feel right for you. Things like steady. I want to feel steady. I want to feel compassion, maybe neutral at times. Maybe you want to feel boundaried. Boundaried is really not an emotion, but it's a state of mind, maybe. Honest, patient, understanding, secure, certain in your own ability. So many different things that you could come up with, emotions or states of mind that you could channel for yourself. So I would love it for you to finish this sentence. On my side of the net, on my side of the street, I want to be a parent who is, choose two of them, blank and blank. I want to be steady and boundaried. I want to be kind and honest. I want to be patient and self-respecting. I want to feel neutral and loving, which sounds like I am contradicting myself, but it depends on what we're talking about, because you can feel neutral about their response to you and loving toward them. Yeah? Okay. Those words, those states of mind become your compass. That's what I would offer that you do. They're not about how often you reach out. That's next episode, right? The next 1 or 2 weeks episodes. They're simply about how you want to show up when you do. These words will define your experience when you do show up. So the question shifts from, do they still love me, to, am I showing up in a way that feels aligned with who I want to be, who I am and who I want to be? From, what does this say about me? What are they thinking about me? To, does this choice reflect my values and my capacity? Which, this is a callback from a couple episodes ago when I did the capacity versus capability episode. Okay? This is how you pull your power back from their reactions and bring it back home to you. All right, so before we wrap, I've got one more small section here. I want to normalize something really, really important. The harsh stories that your brain tells you, I'm nothing to them, I ruined everything, it's all hopeless, are not usually the deepest truth. They're often a shield over something even more raw, which is grief, fear, and probably powerlessness. It can feel safer in a twisted sort of way to say, I'm just unlovable, that's it, right? Oh well, than to sit with, I love this child so much, and right now, I can't reach them in the way that I want to. So if you notice yourself going into those global all or nothing, black, white sort of conclusions and statements about yourself, I want you to gently say something along the lines of course, part of me is making this mean that I'm unlovable. Of course, part of me is doing that. That part is trying to protect me from feeling the grief, the deeper, heavier feelings of grief. You don't have to like that part. Listen, you don't have to love it. You don't even have to believe it, but you can recognize that it's trying to keep you braced for the worst, right? This part of you that wants to self-deprecate or self-blame, it is doing something. It thinks that it's protecting you. And it actually could have in the past, and maybe it still is. I don't know where you're currently at. But I would love for you to slowly invite another voice in. One that says, this hurts deeply. It does. It hurts so bad. And what if it was possible? What if I could start to believe that this doesn't define who I am as a parent, doesn't define my worth, doesn't define who I am as a person? In order to get anywhere new, if you guys have been listening for a while, you know that in order to get anywhere new, your energy actually has to be new too. So what if you could soften around the idea of experiencing grief and hurt without the suffering? Wouldn't that be nice? If you guys have ever listened to Abraham Hicks, she talks about manifestation and energy, and that's one of her entry-level sort of energy shifts, is wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be nice if I could allow this hurt to move through me as freely as it's asking to? Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't it be nice if my energy towards this whole situation could soften? Wouldn't it be nice if I could send a text freely, openly, and let that be? Let that be enough. Wouldn't that be nice? Just opening up to it, because sometimes it's really difficult to move into an I am, like I am worthy, I am loved, I am whatever it is. I love myself. Some people, it's very difficult to jump to that. If you've spent so many years, maybe your whole lifetime disbelieving that about yourself, right? That you are loved or that you are worthy. Maybe you've built up all this evidence around the fact that you're not worthy. And so jumping to I am worthy right now is going to feel ridiculous. You're going to feel a lot of resistance. And it's much easier than when you've spent that lifetime building up that you're not worthy, even if you may not say that, your results in your life are showing that, then it's going to be so much easier to believe that other people's actions are evidence of your unworthiness, So that is why I think it's such a great idea to go to it's possible. What if it's possible that I am worthy? Wouldn't it be nice if I started to believe that I was worthy? I wonder what that would feel like. Maybe I could try it now. You see, it takes the tension out and the resistance away because it doesn't demand that you already believe it. It's just asking, wondering, opening up the doors to a possibility, right? Which leads to a flow of energy, new energy coming in. As you go into this week, here's your gentle assignment. Before you send that text, before you decide to send or not send that gift, before you decide to make a call about the next holiday invitation, pause. We are coming up on Mom's and Dad's Day. Oh, I always forget when the UK or the overseas, when you guys, I think your Mom's Day was already, and I'm so sorry if I missed it. And Dad's Day, I don't know. I'm going to say it right now. Happy Mother's Day and Father's Day to everybody across the globe. And I know I'm either early or late or whatever, but just know that you're always in my mind. And I'm always looking for ways to honor you guys. Okay, having said that, before you make the next call about the holiday invitation, pause, okay, and ask yourself, what am I making their potential silence mean about me? Before you even go into the text, write the invite, many of you, I know this for a fact, that many of you are doubting whether you even send it, right? Well, they're not going to answer anyway. What's the difference? So what am I making their potential silence mean about me? You're already anticipating, right? And how does that actually, this is not part of the question, how does that actually affect the energy that you have when you're sending that text? And then it does that energy, it's going to convey in your words, but not that we're doing it for their reaction because we're not trying to control their response, but it's always good to notice how your energy is affecting you and your immediate environment, okay? So what am I making the potential silence mean about me? Is that story actually true? Like, what kind of evidence do I have to support that? Don't spend too much time here. And who do I want to be on my side of the net, on my side of the street, however you want to say that, no matter what they do, okay? We don't want to allow them, I'm going to talk about this next week, but we don't want to allow them to dictate our behavior because by doing that, we end up entering into the child role or reinforcing the alienation dynamic where us as the alienated parent are in the children's role and the children then get promoted up into our role, right? So we don't want to reinforce that by allowing them to dictate our behavior. All right. So you don't have to get it perfect. Just start noticing. That awareness alone will begin to shift how you feel inside of your body and how you show up around your child, if you are around them, but even how you show up in the world knowing that your child might see you, get word of you, and what have you. So in our next episode, we're going to build on this and we're going to get into the practicals. We're going to talk about how to tell the difference between healthy persistence and anxious pursuit, how to decide when to reach out and how in ways that feel aligned for you and respectful of their current capacity, right? So you're not, especially if they're adult now, they're not crossing any boundaries or further alienating or complicating the estrangement if that's you, okay? And then how to cope in real time when there is no response. So think of today as part one, tending to your inner landscape, the meanings, the stories, the self-worth piece, and part two will be the outer, how to, it will land very differently once you've started to shift what their responses mean about you. Okay? So if this episode resonated with you, please know that you're not alone, as always. You may be alone physically right now, but just know that there is a community and network of parents that are going through this at the same time with you. Okay? There are so many parents walking the same path, feeling the same things, even if it looks like nobody else around you gets it. You are doing incredibly hard emotional work, okay? In a situation that you did not choose. All right, you guys, I will talk to you in the next episode. I'll see you next week.